Hey there, this is Attic Vision, and I'm Medusa. Today I'll be talking about the Majorettes. Both the movie and the book. The Majorettes is a 1987 slasher flick written by John Russo. John Russo is also responsible for writing the novel, which was published in 1979. He's most famous for co-writing the screenplay for Night of the Living Dead, but he has many novels and screenplays under his belt, such as Midnight from 1982, as well as Return of the Living Dead from 1985. Majorettes was directed by Bill Hinzman. Yes, that Bill Hinzman. He's of course most famous for his work in Night of the Living Dead, but he had many roles in a lot of Romero's films, both on and off the screen actually. And he did direct as well as act in a movie the year after the Majorettes, 1988, called Flesh Eater. Speaking of Flesh Eater, with the exception of a couple of actors that also appeared in that the next year, Jeff, played by Kevin Kinlan, as well as Terry Godfrey, who plays Vicky. Many of the other actors don't have many or any other credits to their name. The Majorettes was made on a tiny budget, and honestly, it does show, which is absolutely fine in my book. I believe the biggest downfall to the movie is how involved the source material is, and some of the choices that were made in what to pull for adaptation and what to leave behind. I don't know if Russo really worked alone on the script or if he had some help, but if I would have helped him, I would have done a few things differently. With that said, the novel is very, very different than the movie. While the central plot is the same, a psycho is going around killing majorettes in a small town. There are some confused cops and a biker gang.
Good to have you back among the living, Mace. I didn't think the cops were gonna let you out of the can, man.
They had to, Tila. Margaret swore I was with her when the murders went down.
You know, I can't believe the pigs would harass a decent, law-abiding citizen like you, Mace.
The story is thinned out a lot for the movie. This we know is quite common and to be expected. I know some of you who have seen the movie is probably like, how could the book possibly be more convoluted than this movie is? Well, it is, but it seems to work. I just don't understand why some of the choices were made the way that they were, to change or to leave out some things that would have helped the plot along or help the watcher understand why these characters are making such ridiculous decisions sometimes, especially when there's a good amount of screen time dedicated to what I call filler footage. Killer peeping for a minute before the girl even takes off her clothes. Some characters were changed or removed completely from the novel to the screenplay. The biggest example of this being the person who is doing the killing. In the novel, it's a completely different person with a totally different storyline than the one that you get in the movie. There are small changes made to make scenes fit more into the slasher genre, and there are things that are changed that I can tell were just easier to pull off with a small budget or easier to pull off on screen in general. And those kind of changes I definitely understand, such as the first kill scene. In the novel, that takes place in a picnic type setting. There's no absurd chase, but it's also way more graphic. He raised himself to a kneeling position over the girl, his trousers still down around his knees. The knife flashed in the air, and Nicole managed one last agonizing scream before the blade came down, ending her life. But the man kept plunging the knife into her again and again, as if he got pleasure out of each laceration, mangling her torso and her breasts. At last he dropped the knife onto the grass. Now the kill scenes in the movie are fun, but they're just described way more brutally in the book. The Jeff Rambo scene? That is also in the novel. It just feels a lot less out of place somehow. I personally think the novel as a whole is much better than the movie. Now, don't get me wrong, I love bad slashers. I plan on doing a slasher episode at some point soon. But the book, it's just a lot better. All of the plot twists are less of a ridiculous surprise because the reader is given more information about the background of the characters, and you know so much more about what's going on behind the scenes. Helga and the whole trust fund plot is, of course, also in the novel, but it goes hand in hand with the killer's backstory as well. Instead of being just kind of tacked on at the end, kind of like an afterthought, it's something that the reader is aware of earlier in the novel, and Helga's relationship with the killer is something that you know about throughout the book. Very difficult to review these two without spoiling something. Reading the novel and then rewatching the movie makes it make more sense, but it's also somewhat frustrating because it's easy to see how much better of a movie it could have been. If you're a fan of 80s slashers, I definitely recommend checking out The Majorettes. It is the epitome of a bad 80s slasher. But with that said, if you like The Majorettes, I definitely recommend seeking out the novel. It's a good read. I am a fan of Russo's work. This novel just deserved a better movie, and we could have gotten one. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give me a follow on Instagram. It's also linked in the show notes below. You've just watched Attic Vision. I'm Medusa.